we have a lot of hard choices to make. And it's our job to vote. And we do that with taking the consideration of the people that put us here in these seats. We're here to be their voice. And I think our constituents' voices were heard last week. We were here, we realized there was a need, we all supported it, and we thought it would get passed. And then we heard that the governor was going to be doing a line item veto, and people were concerned. I had mayors and principals calling me and asking me questions. And we were under the impression that we would be here today to override the governor. That's what I thought we were doing until a couple of days ago, started to hear that there was conversations. And I understand that you have to make deals. It's about relationships. It's about give and take, and I get that, and I respect it. But when we were having the conversation earlier, somebody spoke of, give and take or a deal to get this done. And I'm just trying to understand for my constituents, what was that conversation? Because I don't think we were at the table when that happened. So I just have a couple of quick questions for the proponent of the bill, through you, Madam President.
Please do proceed.
So it's my understanding that we were going to be funding the original bill we voted on last week within our guardrails. Through you, Madam President, is this funding within our guardrails?
Senator Gadkar-Wilcox.
Yes, thank you, Senator, for the question. It's within a surplus, so it's still within a surplus budget, which will be within the guardrails, yes. And that was one of the contentions. And as you mentioned, as I've learned myself being here 2 months, this is all a negotiation process. I was also equally stressed and was getting calls, as you were, in the past couple of days to say, are we getting that money? Which is why I reiterate again that the best way to do that is to pass the same bill that the House already passed, and the $40 million, which we already guaranteed them, and which, again, is coming from a surplus which will not impact the guardrails, and which is why there is agreement on it. Because beyond this chamber, it then has to be agreed to by the governor. And so there is agreement on this, and that's why it's imperative, I think, that we make sure this gets passed and get our districts the funding they deserve.
Senator Cicarella.
Thank you. And through you, Madam President, in the future, if we have other very important things that need to be funded here in the state of Connecticut, and they're over $100 million, my understanding is we have about $100 million left in this surplus or rainy day fund that we would be able to spend within the guardrails. That's why we proposed that amount of money. If we were to vote on additional bills that had fiscal notes of, say, $200 million, and we were to use this process of a revenue interceptor, would that affect the guardrails through you, Madam President?
Senator Gadkar-Wilcox.
Senator Cicarella, I think it would depend what you're talking about and how much that funding is. But again, this is well within a surplus that is available. So for any sort of additional funding that needs to come out of the surplus, I think that'd have to be a further conversation of whether or not the surplus is available and whether that funding will be able to be spent. I want to emphasize the point that this funding is, as we've all discussed, is a critical need for districts, as was mentioned by everyone across the aisle, to help supplement budgets now in this moment. And so that's the funding that we have available, and that's the funding, again, that has been agreed to. So this is with the governor's consent that we will have this funding available. The House has already approved it. That I think we can answer definitively now. As to other requests coming forward, I think it'll be based on, I hate to give the lawyer's answer, but I think it'll be based on the context. So I'm sorry, I'm going back to my litigation days. It depends on what the context is for those requests.
Senator Cicarella.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for answering the question, and I do apologize. It was a hypothetical. I'm just trying to understand, is there a means to the end, right? Because we're saying it's within our guardrails, and we just voted on something a week ago, so I'm trying to understand and maybe clarify for some of my constituents that were recently emailing me to understand what is the difference from the funding mechanism 1 week ago to the funding mechanism now through you, Madam President?
Senator Gadkar Wilcox.
Thank you, Senator Cicarella. I think, as you mentioned, people, when you're looking at budgets, the budget calculations don't always align. And so this is a way to get an alignment and an agreement that there is $40 million available, no question about it, and to make sure that gets to the districts. And so for me, you know, the most important thing here is getting that money to the districts. And so if this is a way to do it without impacting our fiscal responsibility and our other fiduciary duties to our constituents, we have to get it done. And so again, budgetary discussions got us here, but that's where we have this approved now.
Senator Cicarella.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the good senator for answering my questions. I don't have any more questions, just a few more comments. You know, I also agree that it's vital that we get this funding and even more funding to our Board of Educations to be able to have the tools and resources they need to help our students. This is a really hard vote, right? Because if we vote no, we're saying we don't want to support special education, and clearly that's not the case. We voted for it last week. We just voted on an amendment which shot down that would give increased funds. We want to give this funding that is so desperately needed. Our concern is how we fund it. And I'm not a mathematician, but it just doesn't seem to add up to me. When we had pretty much the same amount of money, it passed both chambers, and the governor vetoed it. You know, the concern that I hear from my constituents and some of my colleagues when we were trying to caucus this and really wrap our heads around this, because we all feel it's vital that the schools get this money, the municipalities get this money. But it's the process of how they're getting it is the concern. And it's the concern of many of my constituents, where does it stop? And, you know, I'm in a way, you know, it's how do I say, a silver lining. You know, the bill's called, so the bill's going to pass. And in a way, I'm happy that they're getting the funding they need. It just alarms me how they're getting it. And I want so badly to support anything that would help my students, but it's how we're getting that money to them, and where does it stop? We had legislation that passed both chambers, bipartisan, hard debated, talked about, went through the processes, and then we're back here, and my constituents are confused, as myself and some of my colleagues are, on why we need it to do this. And I'm just afraid we're opening Pandora's box to avoid the guardrails that served us well for so many years. And, you know, for that reason, I know that I'll get some emails and some phone calls. My wife also is involved in the school, and I'm sure she'll get some phone calls too. But you know, I have to vote no on this, and it's very hard, and I don't like to be put in these situations where we have to vote no, where on the merit of the bill, it says we're going to be giving emergency money to municipalities that so badly need it, but we're missing the main point of some of the people that may vote no today. It's how we're funding it. It's bad policy. It's bad budgeting. At some point, we need to realize we don't have enough money. We can't keep spending. In my opinion, this is like just saying we're going to keep putting it on the credit card. We're going to keep putting it on the credit card. And at the end of the day, our municipalities will pay more. This will increase our taxes down the road. And we're going to be saying, how did we get here? And it started right here today because we are breaking our guardrails that served its purpose. It worked. It was proven. And I just believe this is the camel's nose under the tent. And unfortunately, for that reason, I cannot support this.